Did you ever hear of a physically or intellectually divergent person run a marathon? Did you ever hear of a person with Down syndrome teaching a Zumba class? Did you ever consider somebody with cerebral palsy teaching martial arts? Well, all of this can happen with this amazing human being that we have with us today, Jared Ciner, who has an inclusive fitness facility called Spirit Club. And Jared, it's now a chain. I mean, did you ever envision this when you were taking psychology courses in college?
Well, thank you for having me. I really believed in the potential and believed in the mission so much, but honestly, no, it was very hard to kind of picture how this would develop into a full-fledged organization. And I'm just so grateful that it has, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, I'm really grateful that it has too. And so I met Jared, well, remotely when he was doing a TV interview in some other state. And I was watching it on YouTube, and I was so blown away that not only does he run this fitness facility that's inclusive, and he's going to explain to you how he folds in neurodivergent, physically divergent people, uh, but he has a scholarship program. It's remote, it's also in-house, and he's an employer of neurodivergent people. I mean, this is the full package, and I would never believe it would be happening. So here's how I want to start. Tell us how it organically evolved.
Absolutely. Well, I graduated from college with a bachelor's in psychology and didn't know exactly what to do with that at an entry level position. And so I ended up getting a couple jobs. One was as a support counselor, working with adults with developmental disabilities, just focusing on, helping them achieve whatever was important in their lives for them and their goals. And my other job on the weekends and evenings was working as a personal trainer at a gym. So I was just kind of, I've always really enjoyed physical activity and exercise and sports. And I was also exposed at a young age by my aunt who helped me get involved in volunteering and being a counselor, in different types of disability programs. And so, I figured these two jobs will be fun. I kind of enjoy both of these two aspects of life and wanted to get involved. And really glad I did. It took about 5 minutes working those two jobs before I realized how disconnected the fitness industry was from the disability community and what a huge gap and what a huge need and opportunity there was to create more opportunities for exercise for people with disabilities. And I really wanted to try to kind of bridge that gap. And so I talked to my supervisors at both jobs and I said, can I do a fitness class, where I was working as a support counselor? I said, could I do a fitness program here for the people who you serve, for the clients that we work with? Everybody here has exercise and fitness as a goal, but I don't know of any resources out in the community. And, they were very receptive to that. And then I talked to my boss at the gym and I said, hey, would you guys host a fitness class here for, this organization that I work with. And they were a little like, what? Who's it for? What's this about? But ultimately they opened their doors and it was just so incredible to offer. I remember that first class 13 years ago and just how excited everybody was to be a part of this kind of organized, structured fitness program and a nice high quality gym. And I realized this is something that really doesn't exist that people really need. Everybody needs to work out and to move their bodies and to work on their fitness and health, whether it's to help you physically, socially, all of the above. And I just was so excited to be able to provide that for people who didn't have that as a resource, prior.
I can completely understand the disconnect because we do tend to limit people that have any kind of difference or challenge, physical challenge or intellectual challenge. We tend to limit them, and we don't understand there are workarounds. just because they may not follow the path that a neurotypical person may have followed, and that can be broken into many pieces in and of itself, there are workarounds if you're open to it. And the other thing that is so vitally important, and you just mentioned it at the end, and that is in this population of neurodivergent people, there are many reasons why they're not in a social community. They're at home more than they need to be, maybe in their rooms, maybe on video games, eating way too much. Therefore, you're not burning the calories because you don't have the physical activity. And what you said, the socialization is so incredibly important for everybody, and especially for people that don't have easy access to socialization. Yes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, the socialization is huge, right? When I was working in that support counselor, role, my job was to figure out what do people need, right? What are people looking for? What's important to people? What are important goals that each person has in their life, and how can I help them achieve that? And socialization was huge, right? Be more involved with the community, more connected with other people, get out of the house, be more engaged in the community. And then, physical wellness and health was huge too, right? For a lot of the reasons you named, right? A lot of people are on different types of medications, which cause weight gain. Are socially isolated at home, which causes people to be more sedentary and less physically active. Um, and it turns out, I did a little research. A person who has been diagnosed with a disability is 58% more likely to be obese than a person who does not have a disability. And I mean, that statistic is, pretty significant. It's saying, as a society, we all struggle, with being physically active, and a lot of people struggle with weight. But if you have a disability, you're going to be 58% more likely to fall into that obese category. So, this is a population that, it's our responsibility to make sure has the supports and the resources needed to be happy and healthy. And I think that's a big gap, right? And so if we can help people be more physically healthy, but also be more socially connected
Hmm.
and have more opportunities to just feel like everyone wants to live a meaningful life connected with other people, having fun, smiling, relationships, movement. I mean, these are universal things that everybody needs. And so,
That's right.
that's our job, is to make sure that everybody has access to those opportunities.
Jared, what's the youngest age of anybody who's been part of Spirit Club as a client?
Yeah, I think I remember just a few weeks ago, I met with somebody. I think she's 6. I think she's 6, and she has a limb difference. Her left arm, stops right about here, and she has you know, to figure out how to kind of navigate life with that. And her parents are
Right.
really wanted her to learn some skills at a young age, and
Wow.
so we are doing, she was she can't quite grip, pick things up, but we were, she can grab like a resistance band and work on strength and lift it up and, latch it onto something. So, just the beauty of exercise is you could always adapt it, right? If for, you, I'd have you, doing, arm raises with a resistance band. With her, we're going to do the same thing. It's just going to be, we're going to put a little handle on it so she can grip it more easily. We're going
Hmm.
to have it, a stretchier resistance, so it's not as much resistance. We're going to give her that target so she knows to hook it onto something so she can understand the instructions rather than the abstract instruction of, up, down, right? Well, what does up mean? Up to where? To what point? So as long as you could adapt and modify and make sure people can physically do it, can cognitively understand how to follow, exercise is truly an achievable activity. You just need to take it upon ourselves as fitness professionals to offer those accommodations and modifications and meet people where they are.
Okay, so I wasn't prepared to hear you say 6 years old. So I'm
Mm,
surprised about that. And I'm going to comment on that in a second and why that's advantageous starting at a young age for the
mhm,
socialization part. What I was expecting to hear you say was high school or after high school. And my comment on that was going to be if anybody has been bullied,
mm,
in their school career and is staying away from people for that reason, this is a very inclusive place to come and you can get your feet wet, so to speak, dip your toe in the pond of people again and build that community up. Through your offerings. But with the 6 year old, as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, this is when the bullying really starts. This is when people make fun of kids. I mean, even maybe a little less than that, but definitely once you start first grade, oh my God, you're in for a rocky road just as anybody. But then if you have any kind of physical differentiation about yourself, that's a tough road to hoe. So I'm thinking that with the 6 year old girl, now she can really feel confident in what she's achieving at Spirit Club, which will then move over into school activities.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that people underestimate the value of exercise when it comes to self-esteem and confidence.
Hmm.
Maybe some people can relate to that or appreciate that, but the truth is, like, you could look at yourself in the mirror before you work out and think one thing about yourself. And then you can go push yourself and have a great workout, come back, and let's be realistic. Your body will not change in physical appearance, within that time frame. I mean, maybe your muscles are a little more, you got a little more blood flowing, maybe you look a little bit, but you haven't lost a lot of weight in that hour. You're not gonna, it takes time, but truly you truly feel like you are in better shape. You feel like you look better. You feel physically better. You literally release endorphins in your brain that like chemically make you feel happy. And I think, when it comes to childhood or adolescence or, transitioning into adulthood, that kind of everyone, we're also vulnerable emotionally during those stages. And you really need to feel confident about yourself. And when you can not only have that chemical reaction that comes from exercise, but also just the tangible, functional reality and realization that, hey, I just did this thing that I didn't think I could do. I just pushed myself. I just lifted that weight. I just made that basket. And even if you're not skilled in these areas, if you have a trainer who can make you feel that way, who can help you realize and frame your participation as a success, which is really what a good fitness professional is there to do. Right? It's not to say, oh, everyone, you have to do 50 push-ups to be fit, otherwise you're a failure. It's you have to do what you're capable of doing today. That's hard for you. It doesn't mean it's not pushing you, but you need to push yourself. And if you push yourself, you did a great job and you need to feel that. And a good trainer will make you feel that, and you'll walk out of that gym feeling proud of yourself, or you'll come out of that, online class feeling proud of yourself. And that, we're talking about, social benefits, physical benefits, but the emotional benefits are huge.
Hmm. Well, if I may quote Phil Jackson, former coach of the Chicago Bulls, that I listened to a million times in the documentary The Last Dance on Netflix, here's how he defines success. Success is achieved at the moment you perform a successful act. You have to do it over. So it's kind of what you just said, with every little accomplishment, just getting up and doing the walk, doing a half an hour of exercise, whatever it is, that's a success. And when you come back repeatedly and do that, oh my God, you blossom into a person that you're proud of and you feel comfortable being. And that I think is so super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, for those watching who say, you know what, this will never happen for my child, or if you're a neurodivergent or physically divergent person, no, it can never happen for me. Tell the story of Michael and how you had to go to Michael's house. And
Sure.
after that, tell the story.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's so many people. I mean, we probably hear it every week. talking to people who have reached out or who we've reached out to, at a networking event or a resource fair or a presentation where people come and say, "This is really cool. I wish my son or daughter or the client who I work with could do it. It's a great concept, but he or she can't do it." And we always say the same thing, which is come and try because it's been 13 years and we've never had somebody who's come to the gym and who we have said, or who've left and they have said, I can't do this. It's just not the way we look at like you're saying, what success is, right? Success
Hmm.
is if you can meet someone where they are, help them feel comfortable, then you can do it, right? And you can build on that. And that's where we all have to do it. We all have to build on where we are. And a lot of people think you have to be at a certain level to be able to work out, right? It's kind of like you'll hear people say like, "Oh, I got to get in better shape before I start going to the gym." It's kind of funny.
Oh, in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, you can't go to the gym unless you're in tip-top shape or you'll
Yeah.
be scoffed at.
Yeah.
It's
And that's
horrible.
a problem with the gym culture, right? It has to
Yeah.
be the total opposite, which is, and when you're at your rock bottom, that's when you need to go to the gym and don't make any excuses. So Michael is one of my favorite people, my first personal training client. We talked about how we got started doing a group fitness class, and then I remember Michael came to that class and he walked right in, looked around, and I think he might have even said, nope. And he walked right out and he was like, this is not for me. He has autism, not interested in social group activities, not comfortable in that type of a setting. And I remember after the class, I saw him and his mom, they kind of hung back and his mom said, this is a tough setting, but how about personal training? Can you work with them one-on-one?
Mm.
And I said, sure. And so, I said, Michael, you want to work out, one-on-one? And he said, nope. And so he said, I said, okay, how about come to the house, right? Come to the house and do it at the house. I said, sure, right? You don't want to do a group, no problem. You don't want to do training at the gym, no problem. We'll come to the house where you're comfortable,
You
right?
go to his house. He doesn't
I
come
go
to
to
your
his
house.
house.
Okay.
I go to his house, right? You're right. Meeting people where they are, I think is the most important kind of concept here.
Yeah.
Got to meet him where he's comfortable. He doesn't want to come to the gym, fine. I'll come to him. And I'd go there and even, show up with some equipment. Nope, right? So it's like, let's just go for a walk, right? Let's go for a walk. Next week, I'll add something onto it. This week, we're just going for a walk, right? The next week, okay, we went for a walk. Let's go back and, add a couple, right? I see what he can do, right? He's sitting down on the couch, he's getting up to get a snack. Oh, great. Look what we can do. We can sit down and stand up. That's an exercise. Those are called squats. We're not going to call them squats, but
Ah,
we're going to do them. We're going to say, oh, awesome. Hey, before we go get a snack, let's sit down and stand up 5 times, right? Okay. He doesn't like it, but we can do it, right? You got to, you find what he can do,
that's
right? Find
brilliant.
what
I
he
mean,
can do.
Jared, that's so brilliant. I can't tell you. Keep going.
And I mean, it took a long time, and I mean weeks, months, but eventually his sessions were a half hour, to an hour. I remember I said, "Hey, I got to go pick something up from the gym this week. You want to come with me?" Right? Okay, we'll go to the gym. Let's do the session at the gym just this one week. Right? We'll do it at the gym. It wasn't in his comfort zone, but he did it. And making sure he feels that positive reinforcement is so important too. So it's not just he's doing it and he's hating it, but he's doing it and he's actually learning to like it because he's getting good feedback, from me. And at this point, we have that relationship. So
Success
building
at the moment you perform a successful act. Yep.
exactly and making that known, he needs to feel that that's successful and
Mm-hmm.
building the relationship. He needs to care that I'm proud of him, not just a stranger or someone who doesn't engage with him. So, build a relationship, give that positive reinforcement and that feedback, and then build from there. So eventually we started doing our workouts at the gym. We broke the ice and he was comfortable at the gym. And then I remember it was like, all right, the big challenge here is groups. How do I get him into a group? Because then he gets to meet people and make friends. And I remember I said at one point there's a class going on in the background, and I kind of saw him looking over, like, he wanted to push himself too. And I said, hey, it looks like that trainer maybe could use some help. How about we'll go over and we'll be his assistant, right? And we went and instead of doing the exercises, in the perimeter of the circle, like everyone else, which he wouldn't have been comfortable with. We went in the middle and we were actually demonstrating. He had a purpose. He had a leadership role.
That is so, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is so very important, that point, because quite often, and I'll just speak for myself, I am most comfortable in a networking situation, a professional group, if I have a role,
Yeah.
if I have a task to perform. And now I can function and that was so brilliant what you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I won't take credit for being brilliant,
It
but
was brilliant.
in this context, I think, yeah, I was able to help him, and yeah, so then every week he we did personal training with me, and then he added, and I'm going to go be the assistant in this class. And hey, by demonstrating all the exercises in the middle, guess who's working out pretty hard? Maybe harder than if he was in the, just in the group. He's got the
Hmm.
spotlight on him, and yeah, I mean, it just really showed how he evolved so much, so proud of him, really. We can do all we can,
Wow.
but he's got to take that step, and he did. And now he works at the front desk, he's helps greet people as they come in. I mean, he's really grown in so many ways, and I absolutely don't take all the credit for that, but I certainly see how his participation in Spirit Club contributed significantly.
I look at it as an equal participation. So you had to lead, you had to figure this out, you had to understand how to lure him in. But he allowed it at a certain point. He gave you
Yes.
his trust. So it's an important two-way street, I think. And
Yes.
then this is a perfect segue, Jared, into you provide employment opportunities. Can you speak to that? I mean, you just did, but uh, the Down syndrome person teaching Zumba, right?
Mhm.
And the martial art, how do they get into employment roles?
Yeah. Yeah. And it really goes back to our origin story. So I skipped this part initially, but when I first went to my supervisor at the agency where I worked as a support counselor, and I said, how do you guys feel about me teaching a fitness class for your clients? The first thing they said was, you need to meet Sam. And Sam was a client at this agency called Jubilee. And Sam has autism, and that's why he received services there. And he's also ran 7 marathons. And they were like, Sam has been talking about fitness here for years. And Sam is incredible. And he just needed some support in creating a structure for this, the logistics. And so, I teamed up with Sam, and he was really the brains behind the class, curriculum, the structure, the format, the exercises. I mean, he's so creative and smart and knows exactly how to connect with this community, right? The organization, I'd say the majority of the people there um, have autism. And here, who better to come up with a class that's going to really resonate than a self-advocate, somebody who's a good representation of them and their interests, And so he was so, every class had a theme. There was a superhero fitness class and an animal themed fitness
Oh
class. And,
my, oh wow.
I helped like, come up with how to put a structured exercise program to fit the theme, but the creativity was all him. And, people just absolutely loved it and still
I've never
do.
heard of such a
And
thing.
yeah, so I think I learned from him, not only can a person with a disability exercise, but can really be a leader in this role too, can add value that I can't, with having less of a, so he has such a close direct connection to the people who we're creating the programs for. And so that was an important model that we've stuck with, right? You mentioned now we have Dion is one of our trainers. He's has cerebral palsy, and he teaches like self-defense classes. He's actually an amateur Muay Thai fighter. We have a Zumba instructor who has Down syndrome. She just has the best energy, amazing dance moves, and she's got the structure down. Why not?
Do
And
they come to you with ideas, or do you look at who's coming and working out and kind of visualizing them in leadership roles? How does this work?
yeah, I'd say a combination of the two. I mean, we're always looking out for people, especially in our classes or personal training. We can see people who are loving this. There's people who are really fitness enthusiasts, and it's a rare breed, but people who don't work out because they have to, but because they want to. And that exists, right? In this community as well. And, we always want to create opportunities and kind of open that door for someone who wants to take more of a leadership role or is looking for some type of employment opportunity in the field. And then there's people who come to us as well. And of course, we're, very receptive to that.
In a parallel situation, Jared, my nephew John was working at a place called the VFW about a year ago, and they were inclusively supportive of him just because they liked him and they wanted to do good things for him. And he started as a dishwasher in the kitchen because that's what they needed at the time, but because he felt comfortable, because there was trust and respect there. He got out of his comfort zone and said to one of the managers, I'd like to be a waiter, but I'm not good with numbers and I don't read well. They came up with a solution for him, which was a laminated menu, all pictures with a Sharpie. And then he would take it to the table, and the customers would check off the pictures and how many of each picture they wanted. He would bring it back to the manager. She would key it into the register. And then when the food was ready, he would bring the food out and everybody would know what they ordered. And so your point is so well taken because it requires a foundation of an inclusive environment to allow people to create, the neurodivergent, physically divergent people to create and say, well, in any other environment, you may think I'm crazy, but I don't think you're going to think I'm crazy. So here's what I'd like to do.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think just thinking outside the box and seeing people's potential.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an often overlooked, population, and that's a big mistake, I think, for us to fix as a society. There's so many opportunities and ways people can contribute, and the fitness industry has a lot to gain from having that mindset.
Absolutely. Okay, now, so the last piece of this is how do you get there and how do you afford it? So transportation is a big deal if the neurodivergent person does not drive and the parents are at work sometimes. So could you please address those two aspects?
Absolutely, yeah. So right now we offer in-person fitness programs and throughout like the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So we have a couple gyms in Maryland. We offer programs in DC, at different locations in Northern Virginia, up to Baltimore, and then our recent expansion was into Denver, Colorado, which is where I grew up. And so I'm excited to, kind of this is really our first attempt to recreate this in a remote area, not
Yeah.
just kind of like growing geographically expanding, but really brand new. And,
Mm-hmm.
we've been lucky to have great, leadership and great, team support and finding just, wonderful people there to kind of spearhead this. And, that in-person experience is very valuable, for so many people. And our goal is to continue to replicate this model, where we have, brick and mortar gyms where people could come and, not only exercise, but do it in this really unique culture and community that is, designed to be inclusive and integrated, right? Just like me, I used to work at a, typical fit, at a typical gym, and
Mm-hmm.
most of our trainers have too, right? So we don't want to be exclusively here working only with people with disabilities and
Mm-hmm.
having kind of this like segregated model, but we want to create a place where everybody can work out together. So that's
Yeah.
the goal, that's the goal
Utopia.
there.
Utopia.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Um, and transportation can be tough. So we do want to, our trainers travel. We could come to you. We partner at other locations like, if our home base is in Denver, we aim to kind of have little like
Oh,
satellites where maybe we'll teach a class at this community center or this rec center or this organization,
interesting.
to kind of have more of a accessibility for people in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do, during COVID, of course, we created a virtual platform as well.
Right.
And fortunately, you know, it's lasted. It's pretty high quality. We took it pretty seriously when we built it and we made it built to last. And so we still have, I think around 60 or 70 organizations that access and subscribe to the online classes. In addition to, lots and lots of individual people, you could join as an organization or as an individual. There's live classes, there's on-demand videos. All the classes have like a seated and a standing instructor side by side. So you can
Oh,
follow it,
wow.
with
Okay.
that level of accessibility, those modifications. So for somebody who can't get to us geographically, that option is always there as well. And we're
Excellent.
looking to expand. So if you're in California or somewhere else and we're not there yet, just reach out to me and hopefully we'll make our way over to you.
I was thinking about that while you were talking. I was thinking about all the guests I've had on this show and all the cities they live in and how supportive they are with whatever they offer, the community. And so this is just one more thing they can offer their community. So already thinking like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And you did
last,
mention that I didn't
afford
answer your question about affordability. Yes.
affordability, right?
So yeah, I will answer that one too. I'd say about a year or two after starting Spirit Club, we realized how many people couldn't afford to work out with a personal trainer or join a group class. And so we created a nonprofit foundation, Spirit Club Foundation, and its purpose is basically to raise money, events, donations, grants, and give that money back to the community in the form of scholarships. So a person who wants to work out with the trainer but can't afford it, they could apply for that scholarship, use that money to go towards their fitness training, and they could actually use that scholarship money for a variety of different types of health and wellness services, even outside of what Spirit Club offers. So if somebody wants to learn how to go swimming, right, they can use their scholarship. The foundation has a variety of health and wellness partners where those scholarships can be used. So that's my favorite thing about the foundation is it really has even a broader reach for people in the community to work on their health and fitness, even outside of, Spirit Club services, they can use their scholarship money to do a variety of different things to help with their health and fitness.
This really encompasses the whole person. I mean, it's physical, emotional, mental, social, it's community. There can be possible employment opportunities, um, funding. I've never heard of anything this layered, Jared. And dang, let's help you the best we can, getting the word out and supporting you. And yes, let's talk about other cities and how we can infiltrate, for health and welfare of everybody. This is great. I can't believe I just stumbled upon that interview as I was on YouTube one day, and much the better for it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share and, more of a platform. And I'm so grateful and it's so nice to be here with you.
Well, we're going to do more, and you're going to come back, and you're going to be part of retreats that we're going to start through this show, to accomplish so much in people's lives. And yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you so much for everybody listening and watching. So Jared's contact information will be in the show notes. But Jared, for those who just like to take notes while they're listening, best contact for you.
Yeah, well, my direct email is my first name, Jared, Jared, and it's at spirit-club.com. So just a little hyphen between spirit and club. And that's our website too. If you want to check out the website, spirit-club.com, and you can learn all about kind of what we do, where we are. You can jump onto those online classes. Everybody can get a free trial to join the virtual platform. And if you're nearby where we are, come join us. If you're far away, let me know, and hopefully we'll make our way out to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We shall return, Jared. And thank all of you for listening. This is one of the best interviews. I've loved this. And I end the show in the same way always. In the world of special needs, we all need each other. Talk to you next week.